In 1984, Danny LaRusso was becoming the Karate Kid. Kevin Bacon was footloosing. Tom Hanks fell in love with a mermaid. And then you look into the music world in 1984, Michael Jackson's Thriller, Bruce Springsteen's Born in the USA, Prince's Purple Rain. Van Halen even named one of their all-time greatest albums after it. The year is 1984. Happy hobby. I'm Dave Gonitz, and once again, we're doing the top 10 cards from a specific year in Topps baseball history. Today, it's all about 1984. Now, we've been doing this series now for a few weeks. We bounce around. We did 1960, 1978. Over here, we did 2001. We've done a lot of years so far, but we got a ton in the future. 1984, though, that's a big deal. I was a bright-eyed 14-year-old. Just entering into high school, just starting to learn about getting beat up. It was awesome. Good times, good times. So the baseball world that was coming off the 1983 season, which saw the Baltimore Orioles beat the Philadelphia Phillies in the World Series, Cal Ripken Jr. was the AL MVP just a couple years after his rookie year, and the NL MVP was Dale Murphy. Now in the NL, though, they had the Rookie of the Year, Darryl Strawberry was the Rookie of the Year in 1983, and Ron Kittle for the AL, not that big of a deal. But in 1984, things were looking up for those Mets and those hated Yankees. Now remember, when we talk about the top 10 valued cards in this series, what we're doing when we talk about this is just the base cards. There's not like rare error cards or inserts or autographs or anything create no parallels that we're talking. This is just the base card. Now, in this case, we will be including the traded set in our rankings. The traded set did come as a hobby box only set. Now, make sure you stay to the end of this video because I'm going to drop some Tony Gwynn trivia on you that is going to blow your mind. I promise. Watch. Before we list them off, remember that we are doing off of a collector's grade of these cards. The values are off of collector's grade, which means it's one above the decade the card was produced in. These were 1984 cards, so one above the decade of 80 is going to be PSA 9. So the values I share at the bottom of the screen here are for PSA 9 cards. So the number one guy on our list, Donnie Baseball, Don Mattingly, a non-Hall of Famer, leads this list as the most valuable card in the 1984 Topps baseball set. Now, Donnie Baseball, had he come around in the 90s instead of the 80s, man, I tell you what, he already ran the hobby in the 80s. It was a big deal to get Don Mattingly rookie cards, and specifically this 1984 card was one of the all-time most collectible cards. Now, if he came around in the 90s, he would have been with Mariano Rivera, Derek Jeter, Jorge Posada, Andy Pettitte. Like, he would have been with a fantastic Bernie Williams. Like, think of the lineup that he could have been with. Now, he actually was with them a little bit towards the end of his career, and they made the 1995 American League playoffs. It was a wild card game against Seattle, and he batted .417 in that series. His first playoffs, but they lost to those Seattle Mariners. And it's pretty amazing to think that Don Mattingly's career spanned the longest drought of World Series championships by the Yankees in that franchise history. He arrived in 1982, the year after the Yankees won the World Series in 1981, and he left in 1985. The year before, they won the World Series again in 1996. Just absolutely amazing. And number two on the list, we're staying in New York. The city's so nice, they named it twice, so we got two New Yorkers at the top of this list. Dwight Gooden. Now, this is Dwight Gooden's XRC. This came as a traded card. Now, it still counts. It's still an awesome card. A lot of people like the 85 version as his true rookie card, but there's also a record breaker in the 85 set. But this was actually his first Topps rookie card in a Mets uniform. And you could pick one up pretty cheap still. Number three, that's the city so nice they named it thrice. New York, New York, New York. Darryl Strawberry, the other awesome rookie card. When you think of Don Mattingly's rookie card, you have to think of the Darryl Strawberry rookie card. Of course, Darryl Strawberry's career, it was a little muddled with drugs and a lot of off the field, a lot of issues. Both him and Doc Gooden, a lot of issues off the field. But Strawberry, one of the sweetest swings in the history of baseball. But these three guys, Gooden, Mattingly, Strawberry, bolstered the hobby throughout the 80s. And number 4, Nolan Ryne. This one is with the Houston Astros. This is our first non-rookie card in this list. Now, Nolan Ryne, he's one of 3 players. Let's see if you can think of who the other 2 are. 3 players to have his jersey retired by 3 different teams. Can you name the other 2? I'll give you one. It's Jackie Robinson. Every team in baseball has his jersey number retired. The other one, my boy Frank Robinson. Love Frank Robinson. Those 2 guys, Nolan Robinson and Frank Robinson, the only 2 guys that got their numbers retired because they played for those teams. And number 5, most valuable, we're going right back. Nolan Ryne again. It's Nolan Ryne and Jose Cruz on the Astros team leaders. Now, it's not necessarily just because Nolan Ryan's awesome, but it's also because it's tough to find in a good grade. Only about 5% of these cards that have been sent into PSA for grading came back as a PSA 10 gem mint. And the number 6 card, it's another non-Hall of Famer, Pete Rose, this time with the Montreal Expos. Now, this is a traded card because Rose started the 83 season with the Phillies, but they let him go at the end, and he joined the Montreal Expos for that next season, where he would get his 4,000th hit. Now, after that, the Expos did end up trading to Cincinnati, and the world is back on its correct axis. And number 7, a rose is a rose is a rose. Pete Rose in a Philadelphia Phillies uniform. Now, this is the non-traded card. This is when he was with the Phillies. And, a lot of people say that they think Pete Rose will get inducted once he does pass away, which I think is just absolutely ridiculous. Both sides are absolutely ridiculous. But for the Professional Baseball Hall of Fame to wait until he dies before they induct him, I think that's pretty petty, if you ask me. And number 8, Cal Ripken Jr. We mentioned it earlier. He had just won the 1983 American League MVP award, and this is just his second solo baseball card. So it's a pretty good one. It's a pretty great one to get, and it's astonishing to think of how popular this guy was over the final 2 decades of the 20th century. Speaking of popular in the second half of the 20th century, Tony Gwynn, the number 9 card on this list. Now, it's interesting because Gwynn's Padres would face the Tigers in the World Series. It'd take them 14 more years before Tony Gwynn could get back into the World Series, and they lose to the New York Yankees when he finally did get back. An interesting note is he had a great chance of hitting 400, batting 400 in the year 1994 before the players went on strike in August, which killed his chances, really. He finished with a .393 batting average, but think about this. He was hitting .423 when the second half of the season started, so for about 28 games in that second half. And don't forget, come back in a second. I'm going to get a trivia nugget, Tony Gwynn. It's a pretty good one. It's actually a couple great ones in there. Number 10, one of my favorite all-time players, Ryne Sandberg. Now, this is the year after his rookie card, so it's his second year card. Now, in 1984, Ryne Sandberg, who would go on to become one of the all-time most beloved Cubbies next to Ernie Banks, Andre Dawson. But Ryne Sandberg in 1984, he helped the Cubs get all the way to the playoffs for the first time since 1945. If you can believe that, they would end up losing to Tony Gwynn's Padres in the NLCS. And I just absolutely love this card. The perfect batting stance, the perfect headshot. It's just one of the all-time best-looking cards, in my opinion, in baseball history. And really, all that's missing on it is like a rookie card logo or a rookie cup, and it'd be the best. But it was a second-year card. So some other great cards to consider. We talked about Tony Gwynn and Ryne Sandberg's second-year card. How about Mr. Wade Boggs? That was a great card, his second-year card in Boston. But now these other cards are worth looking at are all Rickey Henderson based. We got the Rickey Henderson Oakland Athletics card. Such a cool-looking card. Then there's also the stolen base leaders. That's Tim Raines and Rickey Henderson on the same card. And finally, the Rickey Henderson highlights card. All of those are really actually Rickey Henderson, super collectible player. We loved him on the Dandy Dozen in the modern era. He's somebody collectible in any era. Okay, so I promised you some great Tony Gwynn trivia, so here it is. Now, we know Tony Gwynn loves San Diego, but did you know how much San Diego loved Tony Gwynn? Did you know that there would someday be a statue of Tony Gwynn parked in front of Petco Park a stadium he never got a chance to play in. The statue is just outside the left field fence in Tony Gwynn Plaza. What a coincidence that he got a statue in that plaza. That worked out pretty good. As a matter of fact, Petco Park is even located on 19 Tony Gwynn Drive. Now, here's the thing I really want to point out that's super interesting to me is Tony Gwynn Day. You know what Tony Gwynn Day is? In San Diego, Tony Gwynn Day is the second game of the season. Whatever day the second game of the season lands on, that's called Tony Gwynn Day. Why? Because Tony Gwynn loves all the fans that come out on game 2 of a season. Everybody comes out for opening day. But you come out for game 2, you're a real baseball fan, and Tony Gwynn appreciated that. As a matter of fact, throughout his 20-year career, Tony Gwynn hit .403 on Tony Gwynn Day on day 2. So that's all we got. Those are the top 10 most valuable cards of the 1984 Topps baseball set. Stay tuned because we're going to be hitting up the 1956 Topps baseball set. You want to talk about iconic sets? That's one of the all-time best. It's like the landscape and the long. Oh, it's a cool big face with action photo. It's one of the coolest sets ever. If you haven't caught the other videos though, make sure you watch the 1978 Topps baseball and maybe even the 1960 top 10 video. Those are both awesome. But I want to know in the comments below, which of the 1984 Topps baseball cards are your favorites? Which ones do you have? Which ones do you wish you had? I want to know in the comments below. Let me hear it. And whatever you do, make sure you have a happy hobby.